What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Sports Report. I'm your host, Emily Peters, and welcome to episode 2. We are going to pick right back up where we left off from episode 1 with play-by-play Ben Sinco and color analyst Eric Luallen. We have 8 more games to cover, so I don't have any time to sit here and ramble. We're just going to jump right back into the interview. So here are Ben and Eric. Ben, Eric, the first matchup we're going to pick this up on is Cairo at Godby. We'll be heading back to Gene Cox Stadium for this one, hosted by the familiar face Godby. However, Cairo is new to me since we didn't have them on the schedule last year. I'm not sure if you guys have seen them before.
A couple of years ago, we went up to Thomas County Central, and it was Cairo and Thomas County Central. But it's been a couple of years. We didn't see them last year. So that's one that's going to be an interesting one to wait and see and see what that team's like.
Yeah, they went 8-4 last year. They had an interim head coach. Their previous head coach had retired in the spring of last year, so they had an interim coach, kind of like what Bill Reagan's is going through, and they decided to keep him. His name's David Coleman. Did a heck of a job with the program last year, and I'm excited to see what they're going to bring this year for us when we have them on. So, he actually graduated from Cairo in 2006. He's coached a number of places since then, but so. He's gonna. This is his team for sure now. Last year coming into the season, wasn't sure. Interim label in the offseason, they announced they had a surge, but they announced he's their guy. So going forward, this is his program, so he can put his own stamp on the program, and we'll see what the syrup makers have to show for us.
Syrup makers.
The syrup makers, I love it.
Yeah, thanks, guys. The next one is one of the games I think I'm most looking forward to this whole season. It's Florida High at Gadsden. And let's go back to the topic of coaches here, because Gadsden has one of the most interesting changes.
Yeah, so Russell Ellington, he's been leading the Monroe program the last few years. Actually, the infancy of the program, they started up football again, just a couple years ago, and he's been the guy leading things and transformed that program over the last few years. They've done a great job. They've won a lot of ball games. They've got some impressive athletes that have decided they wanted to go out to Monroe and play there, even though it's a new program, and done a great job. And then one of those things where spring rolls around and he's gone. Doesn't go very far, though. Goes right across town and is at Gadsden County now, and he brought some players with him. Gadsden County was a team that kind of underperformed a bit last year, so I'm thinking the injection of talent and with Russell Ellington being there, I think this is going to be a much better team this year, so I'm looking forward to seeing them.
And Florida High is one of those constants. You can pretty much set your watch by them putting out a competitive product on the field, and I think they're going to have another excellent season. And it's always fun to go watch them. I know this one's in Gadsden, or at Gadsden County. It's not at Florida High, but I kind of enjoy going to games at Florida High. Again, another one atmosphere-wise that's always fun to do. But, that again, they have that formula going at Florida High, and they just kind of keep plugging the parts in. They don't change it up for everybody else. They just keep doing what they do, and they've had such a successful program there for such a long time. And that's one of those teams you just want to see that breakthrough. You want to see them get to the top of the heap and really finish the season the way everybody over there wants to see them finish it. We'll see if this is the team for that.
Yeah, that team last year that went 14-1, heartbreaking loss in the playoffs. Oh,
overtime too. Overtime. Very well could have been a different story.
Yeah, and so Ryder Popple's gone, but Makai Danzy is still there, and Makai, we've seen him, his whole high school career. And so looking forward to seeing him as a senior. He's a verbal commit to Florida State now. He is incredible athlete. He is over the summer he did some great things on the track circuit, won some state titles, and so that athleticism he has. He's so fast, and he's a game changer. And so looking forward to seeing what this Florida High team is going to do with him this year. Jared Hickman has been so consistent over the years with that teams, and they just haven't been able to transfer that into a state title. They keep getting close and close. So, hopefully for them this year, this is the year that's all going to come together.
You mentioned Ryder Popple. It was fun watching that kid play football over the last few years, and it was good to see that he ended up with a home and a place to continue playing. But that was I think that the way he played encompassed just the Florida High thing, what they do, and he was that kind of player, so it was fun to watch him over there.
Definitely two teams that from right now look like they could be two very good teams, and it could be a very good matchup for us to call this year. Moving ahead, we've got Rickards and back at Chiles. So this will be our second game at Chiles, and it's kind of mid-season, so it'll be kind of fun for us to get a little checkup and see how Chiles is doing. But it'll be our first with Rickards. Rickards, to me, is a very talented team. I think that they generally have good athletes. They generally play good teams, and it just seems tough.
Yeah, Quentin Lewis last year 4-7, but they had some tight ball games. It could have been easily added a couple of wins to that. If the ball would have bounced their way in some of those teams, they could have been a playoff team had that not happened. But you lose a Rico Watkins to East Carolina. They had a talented wide receiver named Keon Brown who went to Oklahoma, and so they're able to every year have talented players on that team. They just kind of need to put it all together. They've had young teams lately, so hopefully these kids will mature and with adding another season under their belt last year, maybe this will be the year they'll break forward. But the last couple of years they've kind of just have been middling a little bit.
And the two guys you mentioned, that's some really tough production to replace. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, certainly, for them to replace those guys and try to improve on that 4-7 record. But we'll certainly look forward to seeing what they do and look forward to doing that game.
Now, someone to look out for on that offense too. Camarion Battles had over 1,000 yards rushing last year and 7 touchdowns. So expect him to be a focal part of that offense for sure. Maybe de-emphasize the passing game a little bit. I mean, with Brown and Watkins not being there, it's a couple of big targets that you're able to throw to aren't there anymore. So we'll see.
It's certainly going to be a puzzle to have to put together on that.
But a lot of players that just seem to quietly do really well. And that's what I mean when I say they have a lot of talent, but it's just been tough. I want to see that talent turn into result. Moving forward, we are back with Wakulla, but we have them away, and they are going to be playing at Rickards. So two teams that we've talked about. Both teams, they have talent, they have all the potential. You never know, but it should be a good game.
And Cox will probably get rocking that night too, so it should be a lot of fun. Rickards always brings it with the band and the crowd that they get out to games as well. So, and we always get the band right in one of the field microphones.
Yep. And they'll be the home team, so for sure it's there. Sometimes what I like to see. Not because of that, but I like when they're the visiting team because we can see the band.
Yeah.
When we're up in the booth and they're the home team, the band is kind of down to the side and it's hard. You got to really strain to be able to see them. So it's good to see them in front of you across the field, and enjoy it that way.
And when you're down there, it's not much quieter. I remember the first game that we did last year was at Gene Cox, and I had never done anything like this before. I've done sideline at Florida State, but it's much different. I had my AirPods in, listening to you guys and listening to the producer, and I had the band behind me, and I'm on the sideline, so there's all this shouting and yelling coming from the field, and my brain just feels like a jumbled up mess because I'm not really sure what to focus on, and it gets loud for sure, but it's fun. Let's move ahead. Leon and Lincoln. And we haven't seen them yet, so this will be new for us. We do see Lincoln one more time at Chiles, but this is our only Leon game. They've got some interesting stuff going on their coaching staff as well.
JP2, that program has done a heck of a job lately. I mean, considering the size of that school and the size of their team, they normally don't have a huge team, but they when they get on the field, they produce. They've done a great job the last few years. Ed Hill has run that program not only as the head coach, but the athletic director. And then something happened. He left, and Tremaine Hughes Sr. took over that team. He was an assistant coach, so he steps in as the head coach at JP2. Ed Hill has gone to a school that doesn't have any kind of sports teams, if you will. It's Avant. Yes. Avant school here in town. But the interesting thing about a school like that they don't have athletics, their kids are able to, if they do want to pursue varsity athletics, they can pick what schools they want to go to. And the interesting thing is he's got that relationship with Avant, but he's also an assistant coach at Leon High School. So we'll see if he's some of the kids that are at that program decide to play at Leon. No question that he is a heck of a coach. So I think he's gonna have a great impact on that Leon team. They have struggled for quite a while now. So they're Tyrone McGriff, their head coach. This is his second season there. Came from Florida High, and he's looking to change up that program a little bit and doing something like that, bringing in Ed Hill and Shannon Baker.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, Shannon, now their offensive coordinator after coaching the receivers at Godby for the last few years. The people who've been around Tallahassee, been Florida State fans for a long time, remember Shannon, just an absolute speedster on the field, wide receiver who had a really nice career at Florida State. Good guy, a guy that the kids love, and it'll be fun to watch Shannon in the red and white over there for Leon.
And then there's Lincoln. I mean, that's a consistent program. They we mentioned before they've got a new starting quarterback there. They showed us a lot last year. Aiden Fryer was their. We were expecting big things from him coming into last season as the starting quarterback, but unfortunately for them and for the team, he went down to injury, was lost for the season, and they had to count on some guys that didn't really have any experience. They had to call some guys up from the JV team to play quarterback, and it just didn't go very well for them. So adding a guy like a Christian Sims to that, I
think we had them right after Fryer's injury last year, the first game after.
Yep. So we got to see. We saw a number of guys try to line up at quarterback, and it just didn't work. And it's a tough situation for those kids that are thrust into those positions, because they weren't thinking they were going to be playing big boy high school football. Yeah. They thought they'd be playing JV, but that's a big step from JV to,
and especially at that position.
At that position, you're right. And
some other positions, you can kind of hide guys and not have to rely upon them as much. You can cover for them. You can do things to take advantage of what some other players' strengths might be, and kind of hide their weaknesses. But when they're at that position, there's no hiding anything. And as that position goes, the whole team does. And so as they struggle, the team's going to struggle too.
So that team, they lost Raylan Wilson, who went to Georgia. Had a phenomenal high school career. Ladarian Dudley, they lose him too. He was a big loss. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of defense they have. A guy like a Samarian Robinson, who did a heck of a job last year, he's going to be expected to step into that playmaker role that Raylan Wilson had on defense. Did a great job last year with the team. So, Lincoln is a team that reloads.
They always have weapons, and now they've got Sims over there, and he'll have the opportunity to try to disperse the ball to all those different weapons. It'll be interesting to watch.
So moving forward, we've got Taylor County. Taylor County is a new one for me as well. I'm not sure if you guys have had that one in the past, but they are back at Wakulla, so we get to greet your security guards once again. We get to enjoy the atmosphere in Wakulla County, and we get to see Taylor County, who is, I think they're new to us.
I'm fairly certain that's a Taylor County FNR debut, if I'm not mistaken there.
I think so too, but I wanted to double check with you guys, because you guys know better.
I never had them in my previous games either. So, and they're not that far away. It's Perry. It's not that far away, but we just never had them. And I've got to be honest, I haven't done my research on them yet.
Yeah.
So that's to be determined but playing a team like Wakulla, they better have their stuff straightened out.
See, if my son were here right now, we could get the insight from him on the concession stand at Wakulla to find out what the primo item is to go for at the concession stand there at Wakulla's stadium.
So maybe we'll turn that into a segment on the broadcast.
There we go.
I'll find them by the concessions.
There we go.
And if my microphone reaches out there,
the nacho review.
yeah.
When we do our if we continue this through the season and do previews of the games, he can definitely do a preview of the snack
can let us
show.
know.
Eric Luallen.
Yeah.
The food preview.
Absolutely. I did, when I was up in the Cape League doing my internship a couple summers ago, we did a hot dog review at each of the ballparks all around the Cape.
Braden can give you the go-to items at each and every concession stand where we go.
I think Braden can also review the bands too.
Yes.
Because I know Braden does a heck of a job listening to the bands and
dancing.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a fourth microphone
Oh, okay.
for this podcast. All right, guys, moving ahead. We're talking Wakulla again. We get them away at North Florida Christian. And last year was our Wednesday game due to the hurricane. That was when I
was stuck in Ohio.
Yep. That's where I did my infamous upside down.
You had to get some schlep to fill in for me.
Yeah, we slummed a bit that week and got Charlie Ward to help us out.
Trophy winner.
Yeah. Charlie has been he's twice we've done games at NFC with Charlie. Actually, the very first game we did before Eric was here, was me and Charlie at NFC. So that was
when Charlie did the first game. Then they had to bring in the A team afterwards.
Charlie was so scarred by that first game, he didn't want to come back. Is what happened.
Another one of my former teammates.
No, Charlie is so nice, and
when I was teammates with Charlie, he was a punter.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
So will we see you at North Florida Christian this year?
As far as I know.
Knock on wood.
I mean, he signed his contract, so he's bound to be there.
Hopefully,
I don't know. The track record seems like maybe not.
Hopefully, I have done one game there. I have done one game at NFC.
And you didn't fall down the ladder.
I didn't fall down the ladder.
Is that what it is?
No, I did again. I did North Florida Christian in Childs 2 years ago. I was in town for that one. I didn't.
So, okay, when we did NFC Maclay, that was at Maclay.
That was at Maclay.
Okay, where you coined the phrase.
Well, apparently it was a phrase already, and I didn't realize
for
that.
Our broadcast, you coined the phrase.
Oh, God, I don't remember that. What did we call it?
The Meridian. What was it? The
battle on Meridian Road.
Battle on Meridian Road.
Yeah.
Separated by 0.7 of a mile, the two schools, but that getting up to the press box, at least where we go, is it's tricky because you got.
There's a bit of a hill.
Oh well, not just that's right. The very steep hill to get to the press box, and then you go to the bottom level of the press box. That's not so tough, but then you have to climb the ladder. There's a big ladder you have to climb to get to our perch on top of that. And the very first game that I did there was the game with Charlie. There's no lights up there, and I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.
So, I had a laptop. I didn't know how I was going to do things. So I had a laptop, and it was tough to read what I needed to read. So after that, I told myself, okay, from now on, bring a flashlight and print your stuff out. Because I was trying to do things by the stadium lights, and it was very tough.
Well, we get a chance to see Ben's guy, JP Pickles.
Yes.
Ben's favorite.
And that's one of your other quarterbacks to watch this year.
Oh, man,
so
I tell you what.
Let's talk about him.
Yeah. So this game is my 5-star game for the year. I'm so looking forward to this game. You mentioned JP Pickles, Leon Washington Jr., last year and the last couple years, Traylon Ray, huge impact as a wide receiver and D-back and kick returner. He's moved on to West Virginia, but a guy we saw last year that I said, this guy is the guy I think is going to fill in, is going to take that role. His name's Ray Daly. He's a wide receiver, very good player too. So this offense is loaded. The defense is pretty darn good too, but I'm really looking forward to the NFC team this year. I think they've got a lot of good things ahead of them.
And you get the quarterback matchup there with Pickles and Cleese. So that'll be a fun one. That'll be a really fun game.
Yeah, and I got to give a shout out to their head coach, Hill. He's awesome. I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of the coaches before the games, and he runs a great program over there.
Well, and you've got it. For me personally, you've got Bart Schutz, who was one of my teammates at Florida State. His son, Joshua, plays at North Florida Christian. You've got Ashton Gaynor.
Yes, that's
Ashton
right.
Gaynor.
I talked to Amari last year, actually. He was
Amari's brother,
sitting in the stands.
Herb Gaynor's son. Herb was another one of my teammates at Florida State. He was an outstanding wide receiver. back in the mid-'80s. So that's a fun one for me personally, just because of some of those connections.
And I'm trying to remember when I did the game with Charlie last year. Give me a second to pull up the defender. He told me about it. He's like, look out for this kid before the game started, and he wound up having a heck of a game.
NFC is also Fisher's son too.
That's right, Trey
Correct?
Fisher.
Yeah, Trey.
The very first game we had was NFC
Ethan.
and McClay.
Ethan,
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Ethan.
Trey's the older brother that's at FAMU right now.
FAMU, yeah. So Ethan was actually on McClay at that point, the first game we did. He was we saw him out there, and he was a ninth grader. He looked like a ninth grader, a very, very slight of frame kind of ninth grader. And he was out there, doing kicks before the game. I'm like, I don't know about this, but he's matured. The last few years, it's great to see what he's been doing out there for them. So expecting good things from him for this year. But the guy I was thinking about is Terry Arnold, a linebacker for NFC on defense. Before the game started, Charlie mentioned him, and he had a heck of a game. Let's see, O.J. Vaughn did a great job. But yeah,
then we also had him in Quincy last year.
Right. That's right.
We had that game over in Quincy with NFC.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do the game, obviously, at NFC, but got to see them over in Quincy. And talking about Ethan Fisher as a kicker, and that was an opportunity for me to see him. And, yeah, he does a really good job as far as kicking the football for him.
We've got our final game, and that is Lincoln at Childs. So we have our first game at Childs, and we end at Childs. And we get a little mid-season checkup there as well. So it'll be fun to see how they end the season. And we've got Lincoln again, only a couple games after. So we've really talked about them. Is there anything special that you guys predict about this matchup?
One of the things for me is, will that game be a barometer on Childs, or will it be a barometer for Lincoln as to who's been improving and who we look to in that game to really kind of be the favorite when we go into that one? I don't know that it's a given that Lincoln comes in and dominates that game. I think Childs has a chance to be a pretty good ball club. So with as much as we see Childs throughout the year, are we going to be gauging Lincoln's improvement against how they do against Childs, or Childs' improvement against how they do against Lincoln? I think that's going to be kind of the interesting thing to see there. And again, with Childs, we talked about Bill Reagan's being the interim coach. What kind of season are they having as it leads to that interim tag and the evaluation of him to become the full-time head coach there? I think, does that game have a big impact on that decision?
I don't have much to add to that. That's a great way of looking at it. We know right now Lincoln seems like they're going to be the better team, but we got a whole season ahead of us before we even know what that last game is going to be like. But I like the fact that there's a lot of thinking about this and trying to think. But we'll see. I guess that's all I could say.
Yeah, well, it might be a little bit of both too. If both teams pan out the way we think it will, and they're both pretty strong teams, it might be like, okay, well, this team is improving in this way and this team is improving in this way. Let's put them against each other and see how they do.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite place to be on the sidelines? I know you've had some fun at Childs.
I have had a lot of fun at Childs. It's tough to say because, as we mentioned earlier, I did have a lot of fun at Florida High. They were very welcoming. I got to be at the top of the pyramid in the cheer team, but I don't know. I think Childs is definitely a fun one, just because it is kind of close and they are fun. We had senior night there, so I think I've seen a lot of spirit at Childs. I'm excited to kind of check out some new places. We went to Gene Cox a lot last year, so it'll be nice to travel and see some new places.
I'm excited about only having 3 games at Gene Cox because my favorite place to do a game is anywhere there aren't a lot of stairs.
And there's probably the most stairs at Gene Cox.
Right. And look, I was an offensive lineman. I'm 55. I got the knees to show for it. So my favorite place is somewhere where we don't have to climb a lot.
And I like Gene Cox because a lot of the times we get our own booth, right? Our own little place we can do our stuff at, so we don't have to deal with distractions of what other people are doing. And so that's the big thing that I like. Plus, I
remember having this conversation with Ben last year. I was like, oh, another game with Gene Cox. You're like, really? But look, we have our own room. I said, yeah, but look at all those stairs I had to climb.
Yeah, it gets steep there toward the press box too. But I also like the vantage point. It's by far the highest place we're at. So it's a great place to be able to watch a game. You can see everything in front of you and not have to strain your neck, and you can pretty much see the whole field, from end zone to end zone without having things in your way, kind of thing.
Well, you carry me up the stairs, and I'll vote for Gene Cox as my favorite place to do a game.
I've been crossfitting this offseason, so maybe I can deal with that.
These are going to be some behind the scenes, never seen before footage this season. I can already see it. Actually, reflecting a little bit on that last question, I have to go back to Wakulla too, because those fans are so passionate and they are so involved. The whole county gets so excited for these football games, and that's really fun to see too. Watching the spirit from the sideline and seeing all of the fans that have been there for 40 plus years. It's really cool to see. Yeah, that would be in the running too.
I still remember from that game when she was doing the interview with the fan that we talked about earlier, who'd been going to the game since the 70s, and Emily was just like the 1970s. It was like medieval times for her. And I'm like, oh yeah, you mean, when I was like a kid? Yes.
My mom was born in 74, so
oh my gosh.
I was 6.
Hopefully she doesn't take offense to this.
I was 3.
I was 6 then, so Emily's definitely the youngster of the crew.
Hey, someone's got to be. I got to keep it light. Got to keep it airy over here. Actually, it's funny, too. When I was talking to the lady before we were actually on air, just chatting with her, about herself. And I have a good friend from Wakulla, Tucker Pierce. If you're from Wakulla, I'm assuming you know him because this lady I was talking to knew him, and he's my age, a couple of years older, and it's very tight-knit. I was like, wow, I was
about to say, it's Wakulla County. They probably do.
I think it was something, I think the case was he babysat her kids at some point. Huh. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they knew each other. There was some kind of connection there, and I was a little bit blown away. I was like, wow, what a small world. Well, there you have it. 9 of those games that actually happened, and 1 bonus game is Lincoln versus Florida High. It's this Friday at 7, and it is going to be a really good game. So we are excited for that one. Don't forget to tune in. It's on the CW at 7. I think I said it was at 7, but I don't think I said it was on the CW. So make sure to tune in. And I'm going to briefly go through those scores of the games that did happen. So Game 3, Cairo beat Godby. Florida High beat Gadsden in Game 4. Game 5, Childs beat Rickards. Game 6, Wakulla beat Rickards. Game 7, Lincoln beat Leon, and that was a crazy game. Leon was undefeated going into it. It was going to be this huge rivalry game, right? That was renewed, but Lincoln blew them out of the water. So that was an interesting one. Game 8, we saw Wakulla again. They beat Taylor County. That was at Wakulla, our only game there. And then, where am I? Game 9, Wakulla beat NFC. Game 10, Lincoln beat Childs. And that brings us to, Game 11, technically Game 10. So anyway, those were the results. It's been a really fun season so far. I am actually really sad that we have 1 game left. This is kind of my favorite time of year to do sideline for these games, and to, just cover these games and be a part of the high school football atmosphere. It's so fun and exciting. I love seeing all of the fans, the students, and the community come out and get so excited for these games. So I'm sad it's coming to a close. But anyway, we have some fun stuff to look forward to on this podcast now. We can finally start listening to some of these interviews that I have been sitting on since week 1, since before week 1, actually. So the first one I'm going to play for you is one of my favorites. It's interim head coach of Childs High School, Bill Reagans. And if you are a Florida State person, that name is probably familiar to you. He played at Florida State from 86 to 90, actually, with our color analyst, Eric Luallen. So we had some fun on the first broadcast, having the two of them on there. And, he's been so much fun to work with this entire season. A huge shout out to him, a huge shout out and thank you to him, actually, because, I do appreciate when the coaches are easy to work with and very forthcoming with everything. And he has been a pleasure to work with. So thank you, Coach Reagans. And I finally get to play you that interview. So next time we're going to hear from Coach Reagans, hear about the program and the character that he is instilling in these young men. So I am very excited to get that one out there. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for listening. And I am Emily Peters signing off.